Hello to Earth Star Talk, episode 18. Today, I would like to discuss with you the importance of the recognition of past lives or parallel lives, because time and space does not really exist, meaning that sometimes we have cause and effect in different lifetimes stimulated by this one, or we have the effect in this life stimulated by other lifetimes. Sometimes lives are so intertwined and overlapping that I call this other lifetime bleeds into this one. What do I mean by this? The best example are phobias. For example, if you have a spider phobia, which should not have been created in this lifetime, you have never been bitten by a spider, you have no particular scenario of where you should be afraid of spiders, but still you are frantic about them. Then it can be that you had a very bad experience in another life, past or parallel life, where you either were bitten or you had a shock experience in a location where there were a lot of spiders, so it created an imprint, or you had even an infection or something through spider bite, which led to death. Even that's possible. Let's take another one, phobia of being drowning or drowning per se. I can tell you a little bit about that because I do not like sailboats, because I always have this memory of sinking down and seeing the sun and seeing a sail going down into the water, and me not being able to get up because one foot is entangled in some of the toes. I cleared this by doing past life regression or parallel life regression with a healing effect. That means I went into this life where I saw myself being entangled in the ropes, free myself, and then uplift my body. And in cases where that is not possible, as that a helper, out-of-body helper, helps their person in severe need, then at least we can help the person to get easily out of the body and have an easy transition or death experience. So what one can do when one goes into past or parallel life, one can actively change their reality by changing something in the memory structure of the divine matrix. Certain things are not allowed to be changed. That is destined. Destiny things cannot be changed. But if there is a happenstance of free will bad choices, we can then help that other life of us or past life or parallel life to have and experience a better reality by us going in the imprint of that parallel life and setting that imprinting free, balancing it out. Another of my examples is a life where I almost burned to death by rescuing horses out of a barn, burning barn. I was a young boy and worked at a stable as a schoolery help to care for the horses. And I oftentimes slept with them. Well, in the olden days here in the Southwest, you didn't have safe electrical devices, so you had oil lanterns or candles for light. And I remember that one of these oil canisters flipped open, and within seconds, this whole barn was on fire and all the horses needed to be rescued. And the smoke was so bad that I didn't see much. So in a past life or parallel life rescue, I then went in and rescued that other part, this other soul self of me, and led myself through the smoke into the outside and happened to help several horses the same way. Why do I always say parallel lives? As I mentioned, time and space does not really exist. How do I know that? Because in this oneness of existence from which we all come, everything is included. Everything, whatever will be or ever has been, is included in the oneness. And yes, as God or source or the prime creator beingness exhales, there is experiences in different strands and scenarios. And when it's exhaling, this entity, which we can call God or source, when it's inhaling, that creation will be destroyed or transformed and a new one created. The soul, though, as it is also eternal, and as even the Bible says, you know, humans are created in God's image. We're definitely not created like a man with a long beard. We are created in the form of light, and that is soul. That is the eternal part in us, which will always exist. And to have experience, we then expand and dive down from the higher regions into the lower regions, into different aspects which we would like to explore. I always use the analogy of the tree of life. The tree of life symbolizes the life of a soul. The fruit and flowers happening at the same time, and the crown symbolizes the beingness on higher realm, always connected prime creator source. The trunk symbolizes beingness on the higher realm, like angelic realm. The knobby part of the tree trunk on the lower area, before it goes into root system, is where I would say the seven heavens are. Yes, the heavenly realms have also stages where we get more and more into the higher vibrations. The astral level or lower astral level is this thin layer between the heavenly realms and the earthly realms, or the lower dimensions, through which we are born. And that's where we forget and put blinkers on. Then we have the root strands of the tree of life. Each root strand is like a soul strand connecting us with the body, in which resides the soul spark, and the third eye center, our glandular systems. As a root has several roots, as a tree has several roots, so has a soul several soul strands, ending in many different theater play of lives in many different scenarios for the soul to explore and experience. And as I mentioned with cause and effect, we might do something in this lifetime where the best effect has to be provided in a scenario which is maybe 3,000 years in the future or 3,000 years in the past in our virtual timeline. Again, this time is also, when we are looking even at Einstein's relativity theory, artificial. Time and space goes totally different than time here on Earth. That in itself is an indicator that time is just an artificial parameter. So given the fact that our soul spark or our soul emanates into different fragments or different strands of reality, then we can visit these realities by going up the golden strand and then sailing down into the destiny or into the matrix, into the time and space continuum of another such existence of soul life, this artificial theater play, which we chose to explore. In another series of Earth Star Talk, I talked about how I chose my life being in this interim, kind of like white light cafeteria scenario, where I decided to be in this life and then toning down into this reality. And that comes with certain conscious choices of the soul. As I mentioned, certain things are destined. You have to explore them because they're part of this cause and effect principle. But then how you play the role which is destined to you is up to you. Sometimes we have a sloppier performance than other times. Sometimes we have a more glorious performance than other times. So how we perform is up to us. And there is a lot of wiggle room with free will. Now, if we have something destined to explore, which is not a nice thing to explore, who would volunteer to give us that learning lesson? I can tell you from my own experience with my mother, the most beloved souls give us the most difficult learning lesson. And that was one of the questions of one of our group members at Earth Star Talk. Why in the world does my mother hate me so? Well, she is probably a co-learner or executor of a learning lesson. I have found that learning lessons go mostly both ways. Yes, there is somebody who does something to us where we then have to learn, for example, forgiveness, but also the person who gives us something to do. When we forgive them, they will feel it. And mostly this giving and receiving, there is something in balance. So if somebody gives us a very harsh learning lesson, they will receive information from that learning too. Again, learning always goes both ways. It's not an ever a one-way street. I give you an example. One time, the time with my mother was really harsh, so I didn't want to be there anymore. And she caught up to me and told me, do you know how hard it is to do certain things for you or against you? Do you know how hard it is for me to do this and this and this to you? It pains my soul to do these things to you. Never forget that I'm the same. And then I said, what did you just say? And then she said, well, I didn't say anything. So in that moment, her soul spoke to me directly, or her higher self, you might say, but not the ego-driven 3D persona. Yes, we're taking on personas. That's the positive and negative traits we all have. And it is our free will, for example, in such a situation where we have been judged unjustly or have been dealt with unjustly, at least within the parameters of this lifetime, that we give this experience of forgiveness. I found that when I forgave, a huge load lifted on my shoulder because I was not anymore in this theater play of ping pong. This is good, this is bad, this is ugly, this is I'm better, you're worse, and all this. In the moment I could let that go, my mother had to let it go too. Why? Because I didn't play the ping pong anymore. And her pings at me went into nothingness because I didn't resonate anymore. So it is a good scenario when you feel that something is still pushing your buttons to check where it's coming from. Is it a scenario coming from this lifetime, or is it scenario maybe sponsored by another lifetime? That's actually why I chose this background with all the different starry areas here, and then closer to my head, more stars, and then behind me there's more stars. It's almost like a kaleidoscope of stars and rays. And I would like to kind of symbolized with this all the different things which we chose to explore. But in the core center, we are still star beings. We are still light beings. Every core of us is that light inside, no matter how difficult the experiences may be, or how glorious the experiences may be. I can assure you, in the bigger picture of cause and effect, there will always be justice, even if we do not necessarily see it play out in this one life. Therefore, I always would recommend to maybe do a past life regression, which is commonly called, I call them parallel life explorations instead of regressions, because we can, when we go up the golden strand, set an intention. I would like to explore where my phobia from drowning comes from. I would like to explore where my phobia from spiders comes from. I would like to explore where my phobias from snakes comes from. I would like to explore where I knew this and this person from. I would like to explore whether I ever was rich to integrate this energy into my life now, or spiritual or influential, or whatever the theme might be you would like to explore. For example, in my past life regression, let's just take the name for now. I always lead my clients first into a positive life so that they are more open to experience such a life instead of going right into the drama. Sometimes, though, when we are doing a clearing and we are going through one part of our body to look at the cause or source of the imprint of that pain or suffering, sometimes automatically we are ending up in a past or parallel life. And when that happens, of course, I do not go first in and up and then sail down the golden strands. At that time, I will just deal directly with all the pictures which are coming up. And believe me, our subconscious and higher self are nicely connected to the whole matrix of our soul, how our soul is interwoven with everything. And oftentimes, when I cleared a theme or scenario in another lifetime, I look for other scenes in different lifetimes with the same theme. That means we are clearing a whole theme of it and not just this one life. Yeah, when we would go and clear out fear of intimacy because of rape situation, we would clear out all lifetimes where has ever been an exploration of rape or drowning, same thing. I went from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime to see whether there were any other lifetimes where I was drowning. And to my surprise, I found out that I was part or a passenger on the Titanic. Took me totally by surprise. And I tried to change that lifetime, but I couldn't because that one was destined. But it had its rewards to go there because I could see the hundreds of soul sparks when the people were dying, coming out of the body and conjointly like beautiful light swarm going up and then through the water and then high up into the ethers and higher up. It was truly a beautiful sight to see all the souls being freed of their physical body, including myself, because I tried to go back and look back and help some more people, but I couldn't. And then there were other lifetimes. I mean, if anybody doubts that there are other lifetimes, I can say, if I wouldn't have known better, I would have been at least convinced when I was a young girl at the age of about 5 or 6 or 7, because I was so familiar with so many cultures. I understood so many languages. I understood Persian, even though I couldn't speak it, Farsi. I understood Chinese, even though I couldn't speak it. I understood Japanese, even though I couldn't speak it. I understood Hindu, even though I couldn't speak it. And one could argue that that was because of when you come from the higher realms, you bring in a lot of knowledge from up there and bring it in, infiltrate it into your 3D matrix here. But with those language knowledge, I also had very significant scenarios and experiences. For example, in Angkor Wat, there's an underground tunnel from the temple to the palace. And under one temple, there is a big meeting room in the earth. It's now partially overgrown. But have I been in this lifetime in Angkor Wat? No, I have not. Or the scenario of at the Ganges River, being a beggar and hearing the bellows of the cows and when they get up in the morning, and seeing the sunrise and being in meditation as one of these men who back at the Ganges River and living in a little dirt hole. How would I ever otherwise have known the existence and how it feels to be that if it wouldn't be a past or parallel life? Or a scenario, as I'm now female in this body, how it is to have a male body and running in a jungle experience and going through a jungle path as a male and all what it entails to feel that way in all details. There were so many lifetimes I remembered when I came here and when I explored in the age between 5 and 7, many, many more than I want to bore you with right now. But whenever you resonate with a time period, which is not the one you're living in right now, let's say medieval time, or certain music, or you hear, let's say, piano music, and you almost know how it is to play, but you wouldn't be able to do this anymore because you didn't learn it in this lifetime. Or you know how it is to mix colors of paint, but in this lifetime, you do not have the necessary skills to be a great painter, but you remember how that feels like, or how it feels to be a gladiator, even though in this lifetime, you might be not very sportive. When you have resonances like this, certain love stories, which couldn't have been created in this 3-dimensional life, or stories of, I hate these things and I hate this and I hate that, same way, and they have no origin, no detectable origin in this lifetime, be assured it's mostly from a past or parallel life. And as I said, sometimes they're bleeding, I call it bleeding into this life, they're leaking into this life. Oftentimes we have that in relationship conflicts. Sometimes women or men, both, they think they have to have this particular partner for them to feel good or safe. And then they're wondering why that particular partner doesn't feel the same anymore about them. They feel a certain soul resonance or soul portage or soul group feeling. They have a certain intertwining with that soul, but not necessarily in a good way. Oftentimes, though, when we had a very good lifetime together and we meet that person, we want to recreate that life as it was then. And we do not understand why the other party doesn't want to play that way anymore, because the agreement wasn't there to redo it and this good feeling, recreating this good feeling in this lifetime, that there are other things to explore. So when people oftentimes talk about soulmates and such, and I assure you, we do not have only one soulmate, we have many soulmates because we have so many existences, right? So when we have a soul bond with somebody and we naturally find each other again and again, it's not necessarily to replay the same disc or CD over and over, the same story over and over. Not so. As I said, the most beloved souls sometimes give us the most difficult learning lessons. And from that, when we look at relationships which didn't work out, oftentimes they had the biggest learning lesson in them. And then we are free after that to attract the perfect partner for this lifetime. And that might be also a soul connect, even if it might not be the perfect resonance of soul harmony you remember with the other one. And the same with the dramas. When somebody of our soul family volunteers to give us a very difficult learning lesson, then it is easier for us to forgive, because this undertone resonance of soul family, of soul familiarity will always hum in the background, so that it's easier for us to remember that they are made out of the exact same material we are made out of, and that is eternal soul. My recommendation for you is to explore past lives and parallel lives, because if you can clear out past or parallel life blockages or imprints, when you clear the past and the heaviness of those areas of the past, then you can go to a lighter future in this lifetime. And with that, I wish you farewell. I hope I answered some questions you had about past or parallel lives. Till we see you next time. Bye-bye.